When adversity comes our way, know that it is often cloaked in opportunity. When you allow God in, healing, philanthropy, and greater life purpose awaits. Today, you'll meet my friend, Jawanza Lamar. This is his up story. Jawanza is the founder of an innovative organization called ParkingNSites, created to educate and help make parking easier and more accessible for people with physical disabilities. Jawanza's story is one of love, purpose through adversity, and uncommon philanthropy. Let go. Jawanza Lamar, welcome to Uncommon Philanthropist.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
So good to see you again, and has been such a delight getting to know you and learning more about your story. And really just, I know you didn't set out to be an uncommon philanthropist, but the way you've responded in some pretty significant life adversity, I mean, you truly are that. So thank you for being a light and for using your story to inspire other people, Jawanza. It's really
Truly, thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a really good thing to have an opportunity to share, right? And so we'll talk about that a little bit, but very happy, sincerely, to be here.
Beautiful. It's the power of a story, and you never know where it's going to land and who needs to hear, your story at this point in time. So thank you for being here. And so let's get started. I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. I know you're from Alabama, so let's just start there.
That I am, either hold that dear or don't hold it against me. But yes, born and raised in Alabama. My parents, my father's from Alabama, my mother's from Ohio, and I'm oftentimes criticized for not having a really deep Southern accent. I try at times, though.
You have none. So your mother's from Ohio?
That's correct. She's from Lorain,
Was
Ohio.
she because I know that Ohio State thing is.
She wasn't big into football and things like that, but I will tell you that having gone to the University of Alabama and also been in Columbus, Ohio during the Ohio-Michigan game, there's never been another place that has shown the rivalry and the just sheer enthusiasm that people have for their sports teams like Ohio, Michigan, and Alabama, Auburn.
Okay, I'm going to test you. OH.
Oh no, I don't know.
I-O.
I can't do that. Sorry.
My son-in-law's a huge Ohio State fan, so we learned a lot too.
Gotcha. Roll Tide. There you go.
There you go. So you grew up in Alabama. What was kind of the call on your heart? What did you want to be when you were a child?
To be honest with you, my mother from the earliest age, she actually said my favorite toy was a screwdriver. I'd be on top of a tricycle with a screwdriver just working on things. I've always been an engineer. She called me that when she was younger, and I'm that today. And I don't say that as a badge of honor, but really just kind of, hey, you have to excuse me because that's just the way that I think. That's the way that I'm wired. And most engineers would probably say the same thing. So I've always had a calling to create, hence why I'm here today.
I love when we were setting up the shot, the fact that you were looking at the angle of the bricks in the background. That is the eye and heart of an engineer.
Yes. Like I said, can't help it,
Okay. So you went to University of Alabama and studied engineering, correct?
Yes, electrical engineering. Got my degree in 1995 and then came to Atlanta and started my career in telecom. So for those that know, in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, the telecom was a boom until 2001 when everything just kind of crashed. And that's when I kind of reinvented myself for a little bit.
And you did what? Switched to what?
What's crazy is what I did was I laid myself off and decided that I would go and open a motorcycle shop, a custom motorcycle shop, and race motorcycles. That's what I did for about 3 years, actually. One of the best times, made some of the best friends I'll probably ever meet and make during that period of time. But it was definitely a hiatus from corporate America.
Wow. You don't look like a motorcycle guy, Jawanza.
I definitely am and was. It was just something that I always had a desire to do, and decided that it was time. So I went out, bought a motorcycle in 2001, not knowing how to ride, and went up in the mountains in North Georgia, and loved it. Loved the technical aspects of riding through the mountains, and decided I was going to teach myself how to race motorcycles. And so I did it, loved it, did that for 3 years, and then came back to corporate America and said, okay, it's time, it's time. So from there, I actually, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I love those chasing passion stories because so many people don't. They have that desire in their heart and they just never pursue it. And you never want to have that regret in life.
In my quest to get back into corporate America, I definitely did not highlight the fact that, hey, I was just, designing and customizing motorcycles. And I found that more often than not, people saw that little gap in my career and wanted to know, hey, what have you been doing? They really wanted to know about that, which I was quite surprised by.
Yeah, people love that. And then along the way, you had a beautiful little girl. Tell me about her.
Yes, it was a little bit after that, but yes, along the way, I now have a 13-year-old, soon to be not so little girl. And so I am a father.
We'll pray for you.
Got back into corporate America, got back into doing the engineering that I loved. And she came along and changed me, as did my accident that I had in 2017. But I think having my daughter as well as the relationships that I had previously prepared me for the event, right? The life-changing event.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's go ahead and get into that part of your story
Sure,
about
absolutely.
your accident. If you could kindly share more about that.
Yeah, I wish it was really more exciting. I tell people that, hey, I had an accident on a motorcycle. And they instantly think that I was out racing motorcycles or such. But in all actuality, I was with my 10-year-old nephew, and we were on an ATV. And the ATV stopped on an incline. We weren't actually even moving. And I slid off the back. And instantly, it was a life-changing event. But, I picked up and said, I instantly knew what had occurred and said, okay, let's do it. We've got a journey ahead of us, so let's get going. I was in Alabama at the time.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that
Go ahead.
was a spinal cord injury.
It
Correct.
was. I apologize. Yes. C7T1 for those people that know anything about spinal cord. So it was an injury to my neck, which instantly affected my feeling and so forth from kind of the chest down, right? And so a lot of people may or may not know, but that involves, rehab involves a lot, right? I had to learn how to feed myself again, how to hold utensils, how to write. Spent a lot of time, your body, there are a lot of physiological changes that occur. When you stand up, your body's still trying to connect to its legs, so your brain is trying to reconnect and so forth. So there's a lot going on, but at the same time, some of the greatest people that I met during that journey, it was about a 6-month journey in rehab as well as operations to repair my spine. But the nurses that I met,
People
oh
encountering
yeah,
great people in terms of others that were in a similar situation and the
a-
healthcare workers.
absolutely, absolutely. I went up to Chicago to the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and seeing people around me that are in lesser health, greater health, just the camaraderie that's there, and you look around and you go, wow, I'm pretty lucky, and I'm pretty lucky to be where I am. And how can I help the guy that's next to me that's going through the same thing, but is a little bit down? It's like, hey, why don't you come join us for games and so forth? There's a lot, a lot of this journey, I would say, is probably 90% mental and the rest is physical, believe it or not.
Let's talk about Shepherd Center because I know you were
Yes.
there, and that's here in
Right.
Metro Atlanta. And
Yes.
we're just so unbelievably fortunate and blessed to have such a world-renowned rehab center here. So tell me about your experience there.
Yeah, it's like I said, I did my initial rehab in Chicago, but then returned to my home here in Atlanta. And yes, the Shepherd Center is where you need to go and where you want to go if you have, any type of brain spinal cord injury. The people there are dedicated. of all, like you can tell that people have been there for 20 plus years and so forth. They've been there a long time and they actually care about their patients, right? They care about not only their physical health, but their mental health as well. So going there, did a lot of OT, a lot of PT, and they're constantly, innovating there. Not only is it, your physical well-being, but they also look at, hey, how are you going to live your day to day, and how can I help you? In particular, probably the biggest gain that I had there was learning to drive. I had, from the time that I had my injury, I had family members with me daily and truly daily. But there comes a time where it's like, all right, it's time to be by myself. You guys can go home now. I'll figure it out. And one of the greatest barriers to that independence is actually the ability to drive, to be able to take yourself, go when you want to go, not really think about what other people's schedule, what those may be. And so I had to learn to drive, like how do I see people driving, how do they do it? And the Shepherd Center offers, a course. And here I am thinking, okay, we're going to go on this week-long course. But alas, no, it was one day we went there and the gentleman sat next to me, like it was like being in driver's ed all over again. And he said, okay, let's go. And I was like, okay, you guys, you have no idea. Right. And, not even just, side roads. We're talking within 5 minutes, I was on major highways, But believe it or not, the gentleman, he was calm. We didn't have too many issues. And at the end of the day, I was driving, which was awesome.
I couldn't do that job. I'm such a nervous passenger. I couldn't do that job.
Trust me, I've taught teenagers and had them, and I don't know how this gentleman did it, where it's like, hey, not only are you rebuilding skills, but they're skills that you never had before, right? As an adult, you're learning how to drive again, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you mentioned the ability to feed yourself and how the occupational therapists work with you on being able to strengthen your hands and regain the mobility of your hands. Can you share
absolutely.
more about that journey?
Yeah, I mean, when you first have an injury, they try to assess what's affected, and instantly my hands were affected. Right, the ability to just hold a fork, and it was difficult. It was difficult to do, and so they came up with think of them as more of adapted tools to allow me to be able to do that. And I looked at them. I said, these adapted tools are nice, but teach me how to use my hands, and I won't need those. And they said, okay, it's your journey. Let's do it. And it was one of the best things and decisions that I made because it was really focusing on getting myself better into the best health that I could, and kind of get back to a sense of normalcy, right? So yeah, I mean, it was teaching yourself, learning how to grip, strengthening your grip, all of that, right? And then that led into, okay, now I'm using those same hands to drive, like, am I ready to do that, right? So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
So I'm interested to know kind of where, because you being a creator, kind of a fixer in your mind, like when did you kind of start thinking, okay, this is my new reality and what am I going to do next? Did that kind of start immediately?
Oh, that was
Or did
immediately.
did it take a while for you to kind of regain?
No. Immediately when I had my incident, I looked down at my legs and I said, looks like I'm looking at someone else's legs right now. So let's figure this out, right? And so I did. There was never a moment that that I sat in woe of myself. Woe is me kind of scenario. It was really more of, okay, this is unlike no other challenges that I've had in from the standpoint of this is what we have to do. It's no different than waking up in the morning going, I have a headache, but I still have to go to work. So let's do it. Right. So it's always been that way. Right. So there's never been that situation where, a lull in trying to figure out what the new normal is and how do I succeed within that space.
I've just been amazed at kind of that conqueror spirit you have. And I've seen you and you're very healthy and very robust. And I'm assuming that you had that before your accident, correct?
Is that a way of calling me fat? Is that No, I'm sorry. Repeat the question for me again, please. I'm sorry.
Trying to be funny.
Uh,
No, I was saying it appears you're very healthy and strong, despite living with a disability for how many years now?
7 years, not at 8 yet, but seven
So
years
I'm
yet.
making the assumption that you were healthy and fit before that.
Yeah, quite so. I
And
mean, prior to my accident, I was in the gym daily. It was my getaway time. And I would always schedule that in. Yes.
but I think that's an important lesson too, just about taking care of your body, because we never know what's ahead, right? And
Yeah.
when you start out with a journey like you've been on, being strong and healthy, not only physically but emotionally, I would think that just had to play such a role in your recovery.
It did, right? And at times, some of my therapists didn't like it, right? There would be times where they're like, "Look, you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain right now. You need to stop." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Let's push through." They're like, "No." When that happens, like whenever you stand someone up, your heart instantly has to pump more blood. Yeah, and sometimes, I get a little lightheaded, but I'd want to push through. I had that push through attitude, but they're like, no, 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 no. We want you to slow down. We don't want you to. So, yes, I mean, that was always there. That was always, like, hey, how much did I do yesterday? Okay, I'm going to do more today, right? That was always there. Yeah.
Very good. So once you got out of rehab and you started driving, and then you encountered kind of a big challenge in terms of parking. So let's talk
Abs-
about
Absolutely.
where your big idea came
Yeah,
from that
so I've
challenge.
given you guys an idea of, hey, here was my journey, right? And so finally I learned to drive, spend an ungodly amount of money on a car. I could have had my dream Porsche instead, but I have this vehicle now that's equipped to allow me to get my wheelchair in and out, so forth and so on, transport myself and my daughter safely. Did all of that. I would drive to a facility and find that I can't park. So you go through all of that effort, right? You learn all these skills only to be met with the lack of accessible parking, right? And specifically for me, I require van accessible parking, and that's parking spaces that have the hatched area and or aisle next to them, which allow my ramp to come out. So I thought, wow, I've done all of this. I can't overcome people parking incorrectly, poorly, right? That I can't move their car, right? So being the engineer that I am, I started thinking about how can I solve this, right? And so hence the birth of ParkingNSites, which is really more around educating residents, communities, municipalities, businesses about the importance and value of accessible parking.
And I think a lot of people just really don't stop to think about the need for why so many handicap parking places.
Right.
With your presentation at Rotary, I learned more in that 15-minute talk. It just really helped me understand.
I'm
So
glad.
the educational piece of what you're doing, I think it's just really so important on so many levels.
So education is first and foremost, and I appreciate you bringing that up. We say that we inform, educate, innovate, and then advocate, right? And so the first step of this is just really getting the word out and the importance and understanding that there is a problem, there is a lack of accessible parking, and here's how it impacts individually. And it does. The lack of accessible parking / ADA parking, they're not always the same thing. The lack of that, right, impacts everyone, right? And so that has been the educational piece, and I appreciate the feedback on the Rotary Club presentation. But the educational part, I find, at least initially right now, it's not about products. It's really about getting people to understand what accessible parking is and how can they ensure that it is truly always available, right?
Right.
I think I've shared with you only 2 to 4% of parking spaces within a parking lot are dedicated to ADA parking. Although most major cities are, their disability rate, if you look at the census report, is greater than 10%. So you already see that there's a strain upon accessible parking.
Well, and with the aging baby boomers, those numbers are just going to be climbing in the years to come. So even greater need and less spaces.
Absolutely. People are living longer, right? And so that's why if you take a look in your communities, you'll see there's a lot of active adult living residences and in neighborhoods that are popping up all over the place, mainly because cities are trying to, they recognize that they need to address that aging population. Not everyone that's old is disabled, but we all hope to get to an age where we take a little bit of extra time, to park and or to walk and or to step up on the curbs, and all of that is made more livable, right? By ADA standards.
Well, let's talk about like the handicap placards that go on a car
Yes,
and
sure.
how those are abused by a lot of people that just don't know. Let's talk candidly
Oh, absolutely.
about that.
It's the bane of our existence, the disabled community. Those placards, right, which allow you to park in any kind of handicap parking space, are oftentimes abused, all right? And because of that abuse, it renders accessible parking or ADA parking not accessible or available. What am I talking about? It's the sharing of those placards, right, from one place to another. Some people actually go on Amazon and buy fraudulent ones. Believe it or not, it's a thing. Look it up, right? They will use expired handicap placards, right? So there's a lot of abuse that goes on, and it renders, right, that small 2 to 4% of allocated parking unavailable, right? So yes, placards are great. They allow people the flexibility of moving from one vehicle to another, but at the same time, it opens it up for a lot of abuse, and there's truly not a lot of tracking and or proper education of the use of those placards. I've actually seen someone say, "It's okay, I inherited this plaque from my grandfather." Okay.
Yeah, and the penalty is pretty stiff if you're caught with one, correct?
The sad part is it's something, yes, it can be pretty stiff, but the hard thing is that code enforcement is already strained, right? And to get someone actually reported, and to identify that misuse and abuse is quite difficult, right? And so municipalities are challenged, to combat that fraud.
I also learned from you that a lot of times the delivery drivers,
Yes.
misuse those handicap spots because they're like, I'm just going to be here for a minute. But
Well, COVID was great for those with disabilities from the standpoint of you can actually park, people bring things out to you, and then so you don't have the challenge of getting in and out of your vehicle and so forth. So COVID was great for that, but it also allowed for the boom of deliveries, and home delivery. So oftentimes what you find is delivery drivers, right, people that are going to their local establishment, picking up food and so forth, they will park in handicapped spots because they're like, I'm just going to be here a minute, right? And so that's a problem that has become a problem since COVID hit. I've actually seen a local business put handwritten signs up. And I applaud them and commend them for actually recognizing that it is an issue. But they put these laminated signs up on handicap spaces saying these are not spaces for deliveries. So it is a problem.
it takes everybody doing their part. I know again, at Rotary, we're planning a celebration this weekend for the seniors in our community, and we have
Wow. Okay.
200 senior citizens coming to the Legion for what's called the Golden Gala. And it just hit me. And I think a lot of it was because of the talks we've had about, okay, we need to meet them in the parking lot and get them
Yeah.
safely inside.
There is
So
that. There is that because the parking is 2 to 4%, right? That's it. So when everyone sees those mini parking spaces, it's only 2 to 4%, but it's also good that you understand that, not all those parking spaces are the same, right? And you may need to assist people because there aren't enough van accessible parking spaces and so forth, or they're not closest to the curb. So yeah, that little bit of assistance and awareness would be great for the event for sure.
I really love what I think is how God works with the tragedy and kind of refocuses our attention and efforts and allows us to do something different in service to other people. And Jawanza, I think you are definitely living your life in service to other people, trying to make the parking better and the experience for those just better. Have you gotten any feedback, or do you feel like it's kind of a calling now that you're doing this, or where's kind of your heart in all of this?
I'm not. I don't know what you call it, right? But I will say that my days are more purposeful than ever, right? Definitely, prior to my accident. I think life prior to my accident, as well as my accident, has prepared me to be a better citizen, right? A better community member to the human next door to me, right? I'm always looking out for now how I can help others, how I can educate others, and a lot of the interaction has just brought me closer to the things that are within my community. For instance, I go to more city council meetings now just to understand what's going on within my community. Attending the Rotary meeting was really great. I'm like, wow, there are all these really great things that are going on within my community, which I wasn't aware of, right? And all of that attendance and so forth has been driven by this current, initiative, right? Made possible by my incident, because prior to this, I wasn't as involved within my community. So this has been a blessing for sure.
So I know you have some other projects in development that may be too early to talk about.
Yes, yes.
Can you
So
give
some
us
of those I've
some
shared with you a
hints or
little bit,
anything?
but they're all driven. Yes, I can't necessarily speak to them right now, but later in the year I'll definitely be able to do that. We're in beta right now, and we're trying to pilot with communities on those solutions that we talked about. They include educational solutions as well as getting down to some engineering technologies that we could bring to bear. So definitely looking forward to rolling that out, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to come back and share more with you as to those products as well as their impact within our communities. I encourage everyone to look us up. We're Parking Insights, and you can go to ParkingNSites.com. It's Parking Insights on any of those platforms. And there's a pledge that's on there. It's not asking for anything from anyone other than, hey, take a moment and be more aware of the needs of your fellow man. And sharing and taking that pledge is helpful to us, because then we share that with local municipalities, and they see, hey, this is a thing that people care about, right? And those are the items, those initiatives that show that they're community backed. Those are the ones that actually get more attention, and that's what we're looking for.
That's awesome. Well, in one of our previous conversations, I took down some notes, and you said injury is not a hindrance. Injury is not a hindrance.
Did I say
Can you
that?
unpack that a little bit? Because I think that's
I say a lot
pretty
of things,
powerful.
but I think it's really more of I've always been under the mindset of, if I wanted to learn to fly, and it's an engineering thing, right? It exists. The solution, the methodology to do so, it's out there, but it's for me to find, right? And it may take me a million times, but that million and one, time, it's there for me to find, right? So when I see injury, I really see more of opportunity, right? How can I get past this? There are times where I've been met with some type of barrier, and I get past it, and I look around, looking for cheers, and I'm like, there's no one there that saw that. But man, did you see what I just accomplished? I think if you're ever going to an escape room, you want to take someone that has some type of ability or challenge, because we're all people that get things done despite, right? If you're going to live a life and you're going to have some sense of normalcy, you're just going to have to figure it out at times, and I've said that, and I love, the tagline that you have, which is let go. And part of that is just letting go of those things that, or the sense of you're in charge of everything and everything should be met with you in just, a clear-cut manner, right? Let go of the desire to control things, let go of the disdain that you may have of people that don't understand the challenges that you have, right? Just letting go of all of that and executing, right? It's like, all right, I want to be here. How do I get there, right? I have these little bumps in the road, yeah, but we'll figure that out, right? And so that's always been my resolve, and still is, right?
Jawanza, you are one amazing and inspiring human being, and you stole my last question.
I'm sorry about that. I can talk forever for now, right? I mean,
about let go. And
yeah,
you said that just beautifully. It's like none of us are really in control of anything.
right.
And once we kind of make that decision to let go, it's like all these opportunities open up, and we just have to
Yeah,
be
they
willing
most certainly do.
to go
They most
forward and step into our calling, or whatever a new calling is, and always be looking forward and not looking backward. I think that's where so many people get stuck. They just can't accept where they are. And I think you just demonstrated that so beautifully. You're just like, from
Yeah.
the very beginning, it's like, okay, here's my thing now.
Here's my thing now. Here's my new normal, right? And I've also, just in us meeting, I've just met so many great people, such as yourself. And with each one of those, I go, okay, I see the path. Wow, that's great. Come join me. How can I join you? And it's just been really great meeting a lot of the people that have such callings, right? Unintentionally at times. I never thought that I would be in the position that I am now, but at the same time, I can't imagine not. I think I was asked by someone, recently. I just said, I can't imagine not having gone through what I've gone through and met the most amazing people, with the most amazing callings, that I have today. So it's been a great, and it's not just
Well, I see a
party
big,
life.
bright future for you in front of the camera, inspiring audiences. I know as an engineer that was kind of not your comfort
No, not at
level,
all.
but look at
Not at
you
all.
just going for it, letting go and going for it. So
Yeah. This
it's
is definitely
it's
not planned, and I don't encourage people to do it in the same way that I have, but at the same time, it's been really great. Yeah.
and tell us again how people can get in touch with you.
Well, we have a website, which is www.parking, which is PARKING, the letter N, and then sites, sites.com. We're also on all of the social media platforms, or at least LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. So we're constantly putting content up and sharing more about our initiative, and we encourage people to take a look at it, join, take our pledge, follow us.
For sure. And just pay attention to the need to respect those handicap spots. Don't park in the hash lines. I mean, I know I've been guilty of that on occasion when it's like I'm just going to run in. But you have to think of the person pulling into the parking lot. They don't know that how long
We,
you're gonna be there, and
we don't know how long you're going to be there. I've come out of Starbucks and I'm looking and my car is blocked by someone parked in the hatched area. And I'm like, don't know where this person is, how long they're going to be
no way to
gone,
get in
or so forth,
touch.
right? I think I often tell people, I'm like, you know what? Just sit still for 1 minute and see how long that is. It's a long time, right?
It
So
is a
that
long
1 minute,
time.
even though it is 1 minute, it can really affect the life of a person, especially if they're out in the elements. So, but yes, I thank you for this opportunity to share and talk to people and share a little bit more about who we are and what our initiative is, and really just sharing with my fellow man. Hey, here's what's going on. Just take a moment and notice. We all see them. We all see handicap spots every day, right? But just taking a moment to notice where they are, why they are where they are, what it actually enables for you as a able-bodied person, just walking through the aisle ways and so forth, just being aware, So we encourage
So,
that and ask for that.
how can you share some tips on, like, with your particular condition, what is helpful and what is not helpful?
What's the biggest thing that's helpful is actually for others that have placards and so forth, right? I require a spot that says van accessible, right? Oftentimes people will pull into that. They don't have a van. They have a little Civic, and they just want to jump out and run in. And I'm like, hey, could you just park in that other handicap spot? It would be very helpful. That actually occurred to me yesterday. And a gentleman looked at me and goes, oh yeah, absolutely. And we swapped spaces, right? Because if he had taken up that van accessible space, I had nowhere to park, and I'm there at the gym trying to work out, right? That was going to prohibit me from being able to work out. What does not help? I can't think of anything right now that doesn't help, because anytime that someone's attempting to help, it's appreciated, right? I think that there's a lot of things that are done that isn't a help, and it's only done out of ignorance, right? Not out of any malintent or nefarious intent. It's really just ignorance, right?
Such as, if we can have an example.
There's a delivery driver, right? And this happens, he does it, it's a photo on our website. And he delivers packages to a facility every day. And he parks in between two handicap spots. He does that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm sure that he says, hey, I'm never going to park in a handicap spot. I wouldn't do that, right? And the other thing is it eases his ability to get packages out and deliver them, because he uses the curb cutout. But by doing that, what he doesn't understand is he's actually, for a person that requires a ramp or use of that hatched area that he's parking in, he has now blocked that space from me completely, right? He's eliminated the ability, even though they seem to be open, he's eliminated the ability for someone such as myself to park there, right? Why? It's just out of ignorance of what that space is and how it's to be used, right? So that's an example.
Well, we'll get a clip of what you just said, and you can send it to the company he works for.
I've tried to keep, we're not in the business of slamming people, right? We're first and foremost in the business of educating. And it's been amazing the people that when they realize, and again, oftentimes it's people that are handicapped and have valid handicap credentials and needs, right? Just understanding, hey, you know what? I walk just fine, but someone else might need that, that space that gives them access. I'm going to park in a regular space that's right next to a handicap spot, and it opens up the ability for someone else, to park there. So there's a lot of opportunity, meeting people, sharing, and everyone that I've stopped and said, hey, can I take 30 seconds of your time? They've always, they were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, right? And I've just touched someone that will, at least hopefully the next time they get a park, think about things, right? And I think having attended the Rotary meeting, it was amazing. And the number of people that came up to me, the next time that I attended and say, hey, I didn't know, right? And I'm like, it's okay. Most people don't, right? So just taking that pause and taking a second is helpful to us all.
Yeah. Well, and the way you are bearing the message, you're not doing it with like frustration and I mean, there has to be frustration at times. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
most people would be ticked off in that situation. And I
But
don't
again,
get that vibe from you.
I see those situations as opportunities, right? How can I make that better? How can I make sure that this same thing doesn't happen in this same location again, or this person doesn't? I'm not on a crusade from the standpoint I'm going to track someone down and do. It's hey, if the opportunity presents itself, I kind of share, right, and then we move on, right? I mean, sitting and just being a woe is me and getting mad, like I said, not letting go, it doesn't do anyone any good. All right.
Amen, brother. Jawanza, thank you so much for your time and for being here and sharing your story on the Uncommon Philanthropist. Really keep up the great
Absolutely.
work.
Listen, thank you so much for having me.
And I can't
I
wait. I
really,
just can't wait to see what the future holds for you. I mean, I have very, very big aspirations for where we're going to see you and the message that you're going to bring to the masses. So,
well, like I said, I hope to, in the very near future, come back and share the strides that we made in educating people and kind of increasing the accessibility of parking for those in our community.
absolutely. Doors always open.
All right.
Thanks, Jawanza.
Thanks again.
Okay. Talk soon.